AUDHD and self-diagnosis. Your self-diagnosis is accurate. The characteristics that actually make you AUDHD are also the same characteristics that make you extremely accurate at recognizing yourself and associating yourself laterally to the name AUDHD. I don't like calling it a disability, so I'll stick with name. There's a lot to who we are. There's a lot to who we've always been, and we've always been aware of it, and we've always been internalizing it, processing it, playing it back, comparing it to other things, comparing it to other people, processing it again, and coming to conclusions. Finding out the conclusion is not right, starting over again, processing it a different way, going through new patterns, associating it laterally again, finding out that it's not right, and doing it over again. So my self-diagnosis is my self-diagnosis. And I've had people question it. I've had my psychiatrist question it, question the professional that I worked with to help me realize that my self-diagnosis was accurate, and basically almost put me into a nonverbal interaction with him in his office the last time I was in there, which was I think a month ago, not even. Anyway, I'm going to get into all that today on this video. I'm going to stay focused, and let's go. So my 5-year-old son is AUDHD. He's clinically diagnosed with autism. We're probably going to get him diagnosed with ADHD as well, but we were trying to get him help with professional help with who he is so that he can learn how to integrate himself into society, something I never had. So his diagnosis is clinical, and the reason I'm saying this is because his diagnosis and me researching him is actually what the F moment for me, and how I realized, oh my God. And that's how I got put on the direct path of AUDHD. And that's how I ended up interacting with a professional that really helped me out. So I found I have Cigna insurance through my work, and I realized very quickly I wanted to have myself clinically diagnosed. And I realized that all the people that I was going through to find somebody I was comfortable with, they were clinical. It was all a book. I felt very disconnected. I felt very misunderstood. It was very uncomfortable. It was hard not to mask. And I decided that I wanted to F my insurance, basically. I want to find a professional. I just want to find a professional. So I started Google searching. I found a big list in my area in Florida. I just started cold calling. I left a voicemail with, I think, 7 in one day. That evening, this was about noon, about 5 in the evening, I got a call that same evening from a woman. Hey, Ronnie, I'm just calling you back. I didn't even know where she was calling from. I'd cold called so many places that I was just putting my feelers out. She said, I have 20 minutes for a consultation if you'd like to do that. And I will tell you, at first I was kind of I was closed off to it. I wasn't very receptive because of the other experiences that I had. We had a 20-minute consultation, and we talked about ADHD, details of it, and then we just talked in general. She just expressed interest in me and asked the questions that made me verbalize things that I interpret of myself. And in that, it was great, honestly. I felt connected. I felt like I was sharing comfortably, which in a setting with a professional like that is not natural for me. I'll mask, and I'll mask well, and I'm sure you guys do too, whether you even know it or not. So the end of this 20-minute consultation, I told my wife, I was like, what the fuck? She has to be AUDHD, because there was a connection and an understanding that I've never experienced speaking with a professional before. So I looked up her phone number on Google, found out, what company she was with, and it's her and 2 other women, I believe, are partnered in the company, and she is AUDHD. And that's when I realized if I have a choice, I will never work with another professional that is not also AUDHD. I I I don't want to come off wrong. I do think there are very knowledgeable, experienced people that people should get help from, and they're helpful, and it's a tool that's required. But for me, without someone actually knowing what it's like to be AUDHD, there's a part of their experience that's missing. And that missing part of the experience leads me to not feel a connection because I do what we do. I seek patterns, I seek facial expressions, I seek disconnections. So in most other professional settings, when I get deep trying to get away from my mask into communication, I find the disconnect. There was no disconnect with her. I ended up paying out of pocket for one hour session with her. I was actually sick, so I wanted to do it face to face, which is not typical of me, but I wanted like the full atmosphere and experience, but I did it virtually. And we came to the conclusion, I was not looking for a diagnosis, but that's what our conversation ended up flowing into, is me figuring myself out, and I feel like I'm this. And she mentioned to me that at this point, my interaction with you, I believe that you seeking a diagnosis professionally is just you seeking validation. You already know what you are. You already know you're AUDHD, and you just need to feel validated. So that was important to me. So this was prior to my visit with my psychiatrist that I've gone to since I was 17 years old. I'm now 42. Diagnosed me with general panic and anxiety disorder at 17. I had an appointment with him, and this is kind of funny. About a year ago, I scheduled an appointment with him because I wanted to try ADHD medication. I decided not to. I'm afraid that it will exaggerate my autistic traits and my sensory thing, so I'm a little scared to do it. So, long story short, I never followed up with it, but I did go to another appointment with him that was pre-scheduled. It was scheduled before the ADHD stuff. So I followed through, I went to it, and I sat down in his office, and he started drilling me immediately about, so your ADHD, where did you come to this conclusion? Who did you talk to? And I didn't realize immediately that he thought I was in there trying to get ADHD medication, and I wasn't. So I didn't catch it. So he was asking me about the professional, and I was very closed off. I felt very threatened, and it was very hard for me. I couldn't communicate, honestly. I couldn't access myself. All I could do was speak in a way and enough just to speak. It was very uncomfortable. So he was asking me about the professional, asking me what they asked me, why I think I'm ADHD. I literally told him, this is uncomfortable. I tried answering his questions. I couldn't. And I ended up telling him, this is very uncomfortable for me. I'm not able to communicate and express myself. And he grinned. He grinned because I feel like he validated himself in proving me wrong, or that he validated himself. And I was, at that point, I was at verbal shutdown. I couldn't speak anymore, and I was thinking to myself, how could you possibly approach somebody in a setting like this and not expect them to close down? And I realized, do you think I'm in here for medication? That's what I asked him. And he said, well, I'm looking at your note from, it was like 8 months ago. I was like, I'm not in here for that. I'm just in here with a follow-up appointment. And we literally laughed. I was like, I'm sorry, man, but I didn't understand why you were grilling me about ADHD. And I told him this, and we kind of chuckled. And this point, I loosened up and I was able to access myself again. And I told him, listen, it's not just ADHD, it's AUDHD, and I've self-diagnosed myself. And at this point, I was very defensive of my self-diagnosis. I'd already mentioned to 2 other people, family members, one of which being my mom, about my self-diagnosis, and I was criticized hard, and it was uncomfortable. And I came to the conclusion with those interactions that no, absolutely not. This is mine, and I'm correct. So I started talking to him about AUDHD, and he asked me again to express myself. Why do I think I am this? And I told him it's hard for me to do. And he said, why is it hard for you to do? If you're so sure this is what you are, why is it hard for you to tell me? And I'm thinking to myself, how could you possibly understand the autistic side of AUDHD if you can't understand or express or present yourself or ask me in a question in a way that shows me that you have the experience and knowledge of how an autistic person could shut down with what you're doing? Blew my mind. I didn't say that stuff to him. What I did say is, listen, my autistic traits and my hyperfocus with ADHD has led me to a lifetime of trying to figure myself out. I said, I've come in here in front of you and I've thought that I was borderline personality disorder. I thought that I was narcissistic. I thought that I was just narcissistic. I thought that I was just ADHD. I thought that I was going crazy. I thought I was panic attacks. Like, you name it. I've self-diagnosed myself, but realized it was incorrect every time. This time it's not. And so I told him, listen, I've been working to diagnose myself my entire life once I became aware that, once I became internally focused. Up until my 30s, the ADHD part of me was so impulsive that I chased impulse after impulse after impulse, blaming everybody. Everything was external. Everything was external. I had a shift. Some things happened to me I've discussed in earlier videos. I can discuss again if you want, ask. I'd love to. I shifted and I looked inside and I was like, what the F, bro? What the hell? So I went on a journey. I went inside psychology, Briggs Myers, like you name it, man. Astrology, everywhere I could go. And I came across these different, personality characteristics, the ones I already listed. They never fit. ADHD fit very well, but not just ADHD. There were things that I couldn't say I'm ADHD. The autistic traits of myself didn't match my diagnosis. So what I told him was, I've done my entire life of research. I've listened to a good 60 hours of audiobooks by mental health professionals that are also AUDHD. I said, to answer your question, if you listen to 30 hours of audiobooks based on AUDHD and you gather all the characteristics of it, those are the things that have led me to self-diagnose myself and saying that I am AUDHD. I cannot answer your question simply. I can't make a few items that are important. That's the answer to my question. So if you really want to, I said this stuff to him not as emotionally charged as I am to you, more from a much more logical place, but this is what I said. So long story short, I felt very unvalidated by him when I left from there. And I've come to the conclusion that nobody can take away your self-diagnosis. Don't let them. It's yours. It's just as valid as a clinical diagnosis, in my opinion. I'm not a professional. Take it as my opinion. If you're AUDHD, if you're ADHD, if you're autistic, wherever you sway in those branches from that tree, you know how well aware you are, how hyper-focused you've been, how alienated you felt, and the stresses, everything you've been through mentally to bring yourself to that singularity moment where you say, I'm ADHD. What the heck? So another thing I told my psychiatrist, I used an example. Envision building a cake. My entire life I've been building a cake, not knowing that a cake exists. A cake doesn't exist in my universe, but I've had ingredients. I've dissected every ingredient from the molecular level. How does it influence me? How does it fit into this pile of dough? I don't think a cake's dough, but whatever that I'm making. So I went through every bit of it, and then one day somebody told me, have you ever heard of a birthday cake? And I was like, a birthday cake? I've never heard of a birthday cake. And that's when I started researching a birthday cake, and I thought, I've been a birthday cake my whole freaking life. I've been trying to figure out my ingredients, and I realized I'm a birthday cake. So that's it. I'm done. If I keep going, I'm going to go. Thank you guys for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Keep your freaking self-diagnosis. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not ADHD or whatever you diagnosed yourself with.